Good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 10th, 2026 work session. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Wayne, if you would lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item on the agenda is an informational discussion on legislative activity, and our town administrator, Samelia Akpodu, will handle that. Dr. Akpodu.
Thank you. So within the packet, council has a memo that outlines the bills that were presented during this current legislative session. These were the bills that were highlighted as for either knowledge or for action. So House Bill 383 was titled Municipalities Limiting Access to Beaches Prohibition. So that was introduced by Delegate Long. And so the mayor and Delegate Long have had a discussion about this. And do you want to comment on it?
Well, I think that Delegate Long misunderstood what the issues were with Brownies Beach. And so, which is that it's small, there's very little beach, there's very little parking. And I think that he just didn't understand what led the previous administration to put the restrictions on use of the beach, of Brownies Beach. And when I explained it to him, he has agreed to withdraw the bill.
So we have our lobbyists following that, so they're aware of what the expectations are around that bill, and so they'll continue to follow it, but it has not been withdrawn as of today, just FYI. The next bill that was introduced for action, or that required action from the municipality, is a cross-filed bill, Senate Bill 36, and cross-filed in the House for House Bill 239. And I'm going to have our planning and zoning administrator come up to brief you all on that bill and where we stand. And then I'll be able to give you an update on the actions that have been taken by the town as of today.
Hi, thank you. So Senate Bill 36, House Bill 239 is titled the Starter and Silver Homes Act. And the intent is to help provide more affordable housing. However, what the bill does is preempts local land use authority by defining a single family home to include townhouses and making townhouses mandatory in any district where single family homes are permitted. It also mandates that the lowest minimum lot size you can have is 5,000 square feet, which is 2,500 square feet smaller than your current smallest lot size. It mandates setbacks for your front and side yards, that you cannot have a larger setback than 10 in the front and rear and 5 on the sides. So that's 3 feet smaller than what you have for sides. It is 10 feet smaller than what you have for rear and 5 feet smaller than what you have for front right now. So it's increasing the building envelope while decreasing the lot size. And it prohibits you from doing anything directly or indirectly to alter that. It also permits subdivision. So you cannot prevent subdivision. That clause is very convoluted the way it's written, but it appears that it would permit flag lots and very narrow lots to be developed without any way for the municipality to limit that. It also restricts you from limiting lot coverage. You all do this by limiting or requiring open space, but it's functionally the same thing. And you use this a lot in your critical area and in other places to ensure that stormwater is managed and there's places for planting and so on and so forth. You also would not be able to have design regulations, which you currently do have some design regulations, and you would not be able to restrict like the size and architectural elements. So that's an overview of what it does. And do you have any questions? It's sponsored by the Department of Housing and Community Development. It says it's a,
Who is supporting it?
I mean, it's a chair-sponsored bill, which usually means that it's coming from the executive branch.
Right.
So this would override our comprehensive plan, I'm guessing, since it's,
I mean, it has impacts to your comprehensive plan, it has impacts to your critical area, it has impacts to your resiliency efforts.
but I mean, we just passed the comprehensive plan like 2 years ago, right?
Mhm.
So we would have to revisit that and basically update it to what this says.
So yes and no. So it's going to kind of override the comprehensive plan on some level. What is going to be more pressing is right now it has to be implemented by October of this year, which means you're going to have to update your zoning ordinances, and then any other ordinances that we evaluate to be sort of in violation. I wouldn't say that we would want to go ahead and change things ahead of knowing if they're in violation, but you definitely would have to update the zoning ordinance, and that would take priority. I've asked the question of how it impacts comprehensive planning because it basically overrides your public engagement process for your comprehensive planning. And so I'm not sure what that will look like with regard to updating jurisdictions' comprehensive plans.
Right.
When do we know when they end session? So we know when they if it actually passes or not? Is it March?
April, in your council memo, let me just. First hearing is in the House. That takes place this Thursday. And then it'll be heard Senate.
Next Tuesday, I think.
And it is the 17th of February.
Okay. So we put timelines on planning and zoning and the state puts timelines on us. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what Sarah is going to be the best resource for acting because she's also been providing an outline to MML. But using the memo that she sent to me, which you all have in your packet, I prepared a letter that has already been uploaded so that we can communicate that we are opposed to the bill as it's presented. As of last night, MML sent out what their proposed amendments are for municipalities. So MML is also working this to make sure that municipalities are not negatively impacted. And so after the conversation I had with our lobbyists, what would likely happen is the letter that was uploaded would be a part of the public record and package for the House bill. So they review all of that before their hearing. And then they close the package, they send it to the Senate. Since we received input from MML, we could submit another just quick letter from the town saying like we are okay with the bill as amended by the proposal of MML, right? So we can shift our stance based off of what MML has provided after we've had time to review it. So there is global understanding that this would be a negative impact for municipalities. And we're doing what we can on the front end to influence how this bill how it moves forward.
Can I ask, and you might not know this at all. I think of like North Beach. Are they more aligned to what's written here? Because and you might not know off the top of your head, but when you turn off of Fifth Street by the new library, there's like a 3 or 4 story blue house that's like this wide, and it blocks another house. And I swear you can almost put your arms out and touch both houses. And it sounds like that's where the direction this is. When you were describing it, that's kind of the direction this pushes us. Not that small.
Not quite that small,
5
but
and 5.
yes, it's
Yeah.
pushing a high level of density with, well, not necessarily density. It's not regulating density,
Right.
but anywhere that you have a higher level of density allowed, your buildings are going to be closer together and larger, potentially
Yeah, thank you for putting this together.
So I think I could have hours and hours and hours of conversation of how it would affect us. I could talk to Jay, I could talk to Josh, one or another. I think you are just informing us of this, not for us to question you on it. This is just sort of informational kind of thing. I think you did a nice job on exactly the impacts as written to us. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Thanks, Eric.
Answer the question that came up. March 23rd is the deadline for bills to pass in their original chamber before moving to the other chamber for consideration.
All right. And now going to planning and zoning recommendations, right? Fences and home occupations. I guess you might as well come back up.
Mm.
I'll let you sit down too quick.
I believe you have fences first, is that correct? Okay. So we've discussed the fact that currently fences are regulated in the building code. That doesn't give folks who have unusual situations on their lots a lot of leeway. And so we discussed moving or beefing up the fence regulations that are present in your zoning code, which would allow folks to go to the Board of Appeals if they have a unique situation on their lot with regard to fencing. And so what you're looking at is modifications to section 290-19, which is zoning, G, which refers to fences and walls. Just to explain what subject to subsection J, provisions of subsection A means. Subsection J refers to corner lots. And so if you have a corner lot, you have slightly different rules because you have two front yards. One of the things in addition to recommending changes to fences is that I am recommending changes to subsection J because it is a little confusing and has caused some questions with homeowners who have corner lots. And so while we're dealing with this, it makes sense to clarify that. And so subsection A is your setback requirements. And this is basically saying you don't have to follow the setback requirement. Your fence doesn't have to be 8 foot in. It can be right on your property line, as long as you're following all of these rules. So it allows, first it changes from currently in the building code, you have 42 inches. The Planning Commission recommended changing it to a straight 4 feet because they advise that that is generally how you're buying fencing. Then it also allows for you to go up to 6 feet, provided you are following the intent of the rules that are currently in the building code. And then after that, it addresses concerns about stormwater flow underneath your fence. And then air circulation and how to address wind hazards. It also addresses that you're not allowed to block any rights of way with your fence. And if you do, your fence can be immediately removed by Public Works if they need to access something. It prohibits barbed wire. It does have a clause allowing fences larger than 6 feet because there's another section of the code that requires 8-foot fences around commercial parking. And then it also addresses non-conforming fences and how to make sure that, everybody who has an existing fence doesn't have to immediately change that. But if they are upgrading it, that it comes into compliance. So we have a couple of fences that are functionally in the front yard, and that isn't really permitted, but we don't want to make them tear them down because they've been there for a while.
I'm sorry.
No, if we have questions on that section, then we can look at the corner lot section separately.
You said 8-foot fences on commercial parking. Where would that example be?
I think off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the boat storage off of 260. But I just know that there is a section with design standards around parking, and it does require higher fences and screening in it. So I don't know the specifics of where those are located in town. I just know that
Is that just a general requirement for commercial parking?
it has to do with when there's a residential area and then there's a commercial use that's not compatible, that might be visually disruptive or make a lot of noise. So then that fence is sort of providing that screening and blocking separation.
I know the example you're speaking of. But is it? So, I mean, we have a bunch of commercial parking, just in parking lots and stuff like that. Storage is one thing. I think maybe storage is, maybe we can revisit it.
Right. So that's a different section of the code, 290.21, which is different than addressing the residential fences. And so that wasn't on the list of things to address, but I did not want to contradict it in this code. So.
I did have one question, Sarah, just to tie back, just to kind of say to Jay, just so I can align with you both on the process of, there's this section where if it goes across the easement or the right of way, just so I can understand what that process looks like. Because obviously a fence, there are plenty of fences that do go across right of ways, but the current way it's written, it would almost sound like if I put it up, boom, it's going to get removed right away. But yeah.
The way it's written, and the town attorney will advise also on any changes to this, is meant to say, if there's a break in the water line and it's behind your fence, that means that Jay and his team are going to need to take that fence out without giving you any notice, because they have to fix that
Perfect.
break.
Okay. Yes, because that's what we've always gone back to, is like how you should be able to do it, and then but you assume the risk and the responsibility should the town need to access it. It's on you. Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions?
Sarah's crushing it today.
Right.
Well, then, if you don't have more questions about the fences, I just want to touch on the corner
Okay.
lots real quick. And so what this would do is it clarifies that your corner lots, both sides that face the street, are front yards and are subject to all the front yard regulations. And then it allows the remaining two to be side yards. And the Planning Commission considered having one rear yard and one side yard, or having two side yards, and came down on having two side yards because it allows the homeowner a little more flexibility and a little more yard area. There's some verbiage in there about pools so that it doesn't contradict with your pool regulations. I don't know if you wanted to provide a different perspective so you guys can think about it.
No, I agree with you. But Sarah and I had a conversation about whether in a lot of jurisdictions, you'll hear that there is a one front yard, one rear yard, and everything else is a side. And that just makes it easier from my perspective to interpret. But as Sarah explained to me, as it's written, it actually gives the homeowner more usable yard with more yard space fenced off. So I agree with you. Let's do it your way.
Thanks. I have one question. The 6-foot fence is allowed in the side yard as well?
Yes, so the way it's written in the 6-foot fence will be if you go halfway down your walls, your exterior walls, then the fence starts there and goes all the way back. Or
So the
can go
side
all the
yards
way.
that you're talking about on a corner lot could be 6 feet, correct?
Yes, but there's only two side yards, so that the two side yards are your rear and side, right? They can't put the fence in the front yard. So some corner lots have been putting the fences in the front yard outside of the setback line in the past. But this would not allow that.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
asking because I want to make sure that people that have a pool on a corner lot can have the right size fence.
Yes.
Are you good? Does this address the issue we had where it's basically up to Jay to approve the fence
Yes, so there's specific clear rules that would come through zoning. I would review it. If it complies with all the rules and regulations, I would be able to issue the permit. If it doesn't, I would issue a denial, and that would allow a property owner who has a unique situation to go to Board of Appeals and request an appeal that follows specific procedures that are clearly laid out. I think that is a better process.
Questions? All right, thank you, Sarah. Okay, home occupations.
So our next topic that the Planning Commission has been addressing is home occupations. Something happened, we're not really sure what, but it basically removed home occupations from any area really that has residential uses in town. And so you all asked that we address that quickly within 90 days. And so we came up with sort of a quick and dirty solution that will allow people to get permits for their home occupations while we take a larger look at the land use table and home occupations more comprehensively. And so what this does is it conditionally allows home occupations in all districts, and it has two separate sets of regulations. So if you are in a RV2, which is residential village 2, neighborhood commercial, town commercial, plaza commercial, or marine commercial district, your home occupation can have an employee, it can have some folks coming in and out of it, and more traffic, not a lot of traffic, but would be generated there. If you're in an RV1, a residential low density, residential medium density, residential high density, or a residential planned community, then your home occupation would have no outside employees, no visible signs of it existing, and no traffic generated to it. And those conditions are done administratively. So they come in, they ask me for a permit, I give them a permit that says, here are the conditions that you have to continue to comply with. So they don't have to go through extra processes to have that happen.
Questions?
It's like a one-time permit. Once you get the permit, you're pretty much good to go. You don't have to do it every year.
No, you don't have to do it every year. I would say if you're changing your operations to a different type of business or in size and scale, because it has a 30%, I believe, of your home space. So if you're going to start to use more space, you might want to make sure you're not come in and just ask to check compliance.
And I think I remember seeing like a list of prohibited like home occupations before. Is this like, this
Mhm.
basically replaces that with, as long as you meet these requirements, then you're good to go.
Yes, that doesn't mean that animal hospitals, tourist homes, tea rooms, and restaurants are permitted home occupations. They wouldn't be permitted because of the other regulations that are in here. And we are having a discussion and probably will offer more changes to this when you get the land use table updates, but this solves an immediate problem.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you for working this, because I think this is the first step in the right direction with it, because there's a lot to navigate with the land use table, but this removes a contradiction that was very obvious in there. Thank you.
Anybody else got any comments or questions?
I do have a couple questions, and yes, thank you for addressing this. I think, we should not have done what we did with home occupations. And just for the record, the Planning and Zoning Commission did not do that.
I bet you, Lori.
It did not. We did not address home occupations or change them in the land use table. But I do have some concerns about how you're going to address controlled substances, for one, as a home occupation. I don't see it listed here. So if the business has to do with a controlled substance, will you be able to deny a permit for it if it's a home occupation?
I thought the table calls that specifically out as not allowed, no matter what.
So are you talking specifically about cannabis? Is my question.
I'm sorry?
Are you talking specifically about cannabis?
I'm talking specifically about any controlled substance. I mean, what if somebody was a pharmacist? What if, so, and my thought is that there are certain businesses that belong with a storefront and not in neighborhoods where there's no eyes on them. And controlled substance and businesses related to controlled substances would be one of those. So what I would want to see is an explicit call out to say, your home occupation business should not be related to a controlled substance.
That'd be covered under E.
Um,
I don't think so.
Yeah, because it could be
Um,
internet sales or just not for, what I would recommend is that it's just for me to flag this for your attorney and have because the town attorney is going to read this and say, maybe they want that to go, that line that planning commission took out to go back in and add controlled substances. I asked about cannabis because it's a little different. Like, it is explicitly prohibited in our ordinance, but that's not in compliance with state law. So that gets trickier. But we'll be addressing that when you get the new land use table.
Right. So in my opinion, it would not be appropriate to allow somebody in somebody's neighborhood to run a cannabis business out of their home, or, any other kind of controlled substance business. I also have a concern around therapy. So I think that's another type of business where maybe you have vulnerable customers, maybe you need more eyes on it, and people need to know that, any kind of therapy is going on, or counseling, or so you don't get, somebody calling something therapy when it's not. So I would say that would be another one that would need a storefront, and that you might not, there's lots of reasons why you might not want that in a neighborhood. And then the third one would be some of your massage or physical type of interactive businesses. So those would be my 3 call outs. And I think if you move into a neighborhood, you're expecting it to be a neighborhood, and you're not expecting kind of more alternative types of uses to come into your neighborhood. I think it would be appropriate to regulate home occupation in that way. And other than that, we want to allow home occupations, and there's, we don't want to be overly restrictive, but I do think there are some uses that need to be considered and regulated so that you can deny permits to home occupations that might be very disruptive.
I do want to call out, so in here it does state no on-site retail sales are conducted on the premises. And then, so I think that one covers a portion of what you said. Pharmacy and cannabis, I mean, is a highly regulated space. So I think you'd never get the state permit to operate in your house, at all, let cannabis or a pharmacy. I do see maybe you could say something along the lines of you could maybe add a little wording there if you wanted to prevent some certain types of customers coming, but it does say, because it says no on-site sales, really nobody should be coming to your house to buy stuff. But
Which letter is
I
that?
think-
that's
H.
letter H
H,
under section 2.
last page.
Gotcha.
So that's in the residential neighborhoods.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Except
thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate for us to just ask the attorney and really think
Yes.
about it. And, it doesn't say anything about consumption either. So,
Yeah, and I do, because planning and zoning had an attorney for the last meeting, that I had brief conversations with the attorney on this, and she was kind of, well, you might need to still call those out. So I think your attorney may say, we need to put back in the call outs, and that's something she would advise you to do.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it looks like you have had a busy few days.
Or he's shooting down all my business ideas. I was kidding.
another argument for
Not sure about your
limiting
business.
certain businesses from the residential areas is that you drive it towards a type of growth where there are more storefronts and there is more activity in your town and things like that. So these are all, things to think about, for us to think about when we're passing this zoning.
And your conversation on this will help inform the Planning Commission's conversation as they update it more comprehensively. Like the approach is already different to this.
Yeah, I appreciate, I watched the meetings, so. And I've been in many meetings, so I appreciate how much work it is. And when you really get in the details, it becomes very difficult. So, good job.
Any other questions for Sarah?
No questions, but I want to comment a little bit. One comment really on what Lori's saying is just one thing. I do think we might need to think through those types of prohibitions thoroughly, because I am aware of some residents who do like small batch microbrew in their house and then they sell it to bars.
Yeah.
They don't sell it out of their house individually to people, but
Mhm.
and I am pretty sure that they are licensed because I remember talking them through the licensing process.
Mhm.
So that's something to
So
think
they
about.
might be grandfathered at this point if they are licensed and permitted.
They
Not sure.
either don't have a permit from before the zoning ordinance was changed.
Well,
But let's
wouldn't
not.
that equal a permit if they,
Right,
each
yes, it's
one?
a permit.
Right.
Yes.
so this would just be applying to future people that wanted to do that, not necessarily somebody that's already grandfathered.
But is it something that we want to prohibit moving forward?
It's something to think about. I mean, a residential neighborhood to me is a residential neighborhood. And, yeah, I might want to prohibit that, or at least put some things into a special exception instead of just a straight up conditional permitting.
And then the new way that's going to be coming out of the land use table will make that easier to do.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The new way that the land use table is being designed by the Planning Commission now will make what you're suggesting, the special exception, easier to include than how this is written this way. We're kind of trying to quickly fix something,
Right.
but the real fix is actually to shift sort of the way it's written not entirely, and that will make a special exception easier for specific uses, like to put into the code.
Right. I didn't think that the way that we did our zoning code was confusing. I thought a lot of the laws were confusing, but I was fine with the method. But I'm sure that, I mean, you have to enforce it and you have to implement it. So most important person to understand it is you and a future planner.
Well, and I also think it's important for residents and businesses to be able to understand it. So that's the goal of the new design.
Right. I'm sure you'll do a good job with it.
And I think Eric was saying, like, different people have different hobbies, and you get into a hobby like craft brewing and stuff like that. Like, if that's their outlet. I think that's the idea of a home business, whether it's making lamps or it's like little crafts that turns into a bakery or something like that. I think it's sort of find a little outlet and find an outlet for your creativity. And if you need a license and stuff, that's sort of the intent that we're trying to do. Like, I mean, I know some people that really enjoy doing that stuff. And I don't think we want to take away from people's enjoyment. I don't know, whatever
I
that is.
agree, but I think there's a monetary threshold for almost anything like that. Is that right, Sarah?
You can use a monetary threshold. I would really say that I'm going to send a message to your attorney and say, here's some things that got discussed. And so she will probably advise what she thinks if you should put back in some call outs, what she advises to be those call outs. And then if you all want to put additional requests and discussions. I think that's probably the best way to do it because I want to make sure that whatever you're adopting is legally correct. And it is a little more complicated of an issue than I'm able to speak to clearly from the legalities.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on? All right. Cullum's draft concept master plan, Jamie, Jeremy, and Wayne.
Okay.
Jamie and Jenny and Wayne, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'll set the stage a little bit here. So everybody has a couple things. One, you'll have Wayne and Jenny put together this fantastic packet on the concept plan. I put in here the Kellum's resident survey just for reference as we're talking through some of that stuff. And then in the email that I sent to the council really was to just reiterate the purpose, the intent here, not trying to redesign completely this. Like we already went through a lot of discussions over the last year. We've had the committee, we've had the surveys, and now it was taking that, putting into a concept plan, but really wanted to, one, bring it up, but two, give the entire council an opportunity to ask questions to both Wayne and Jenny on concept thoughts. I'll hold off on my thoughts, but everything's open to interpretation. This was Jenny taking our vision based off of walking Kellum's one day, a conversation in here, and then saying like, use your imagination to create just a beautiful space for our community. And this is iteration one. And I think she's done, and no matter what changes we decide to ultimately make, she's done a fantastic job of crafting something. So with that.
And if I can add to that, I spent some time going over this today, and I am very impressed with the work that you all have done. I think, and okay, he's pointing at you. Wayne's pointing at you.
Yeah, I'm just going to give credit where credit's due. This is Jenny. She's fantastic. This
Well, that,
so
and I'm really happy to see it. One thing I will say, it's never been known as Kellum Park. It's always been Kellum's Park. And so I think we should continue to call it Kellum's. And it was named after Buddy Kellum. And I don't know, did you know Buddy Kellum?
yes.
Okay. And so, so anyway, we just want to preserve that. But from what I see here, there are some fantastic ideas here. And Council, I hope you approach all of this with an open mind. I think this is an opportunity for this council to make a lasting change to the recreational facilities of the beautiful town of Chesapeake Beach. And so anyway, take it away.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. The last thing I wanted to ask is that the idea coming out of this is some kind of concurrence on next iterations of a draft, and then also really thinking through, we have some funding in the budget that was prepared for Kellum's in general, how we can leverage that before it expires, I guess, for our budget year ends the 1st of July. We go into 2027. So how can we really, I'm going to use a terrible political term, but how do we get something shovel ready to, I never thought I would actually say that, but how do we do that so we can actually start executing on some of this and not just getting in a vicious cycle of talking? So with that, I'll shut up.
Thank you.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
Green
There we
light.
go. Okay.
Oh, that helps.
Thank you.
All right. I have over 10 years of experience doing park master planning, vision planning, and landscape architecture at this scale, but also smaller scales as well. So thank you for inviting us to be able to envision your project. It's actually you made it very easy for me because you had already figured out what needed to go there and said, now you can do what I think is the fun part, which is, present a vision for what we think we want here. So really Kellum's Park is essentially a blank slate. I mean, there's a lot there already. There's the tot lot and the field and the parking. You have the infrastructure there. But I can definitely see a vision for creating enhancing, I should say, the heart of Chesapeake Beach. One of the things that I took away from our meeting is that Kellums Park is really where the gathering place is for the town. Anything big that happens here, it's going to be held there. And so the vision is intended to kind of celebrate that as a collective public space. So I'm going to be pointing to one of these slides. If you go back one slide, we created a concept plan. And then one of the techniques that we use in master planning is to use a lot of precedent imagery, because we don't want to go too far in defining what is going to be there, or the look or the feel. So I'm using a lot of precedent imagery, and this is from a park in Houston where I used to work, called Levi Park, and it is a great example of a small space that maximizes the use. And so that's kind of what I was thinking of when I sat with you all, and I hear Jamie's the phasing plan that he had presented, and I was like, this is a lot, but we can do this here. It's just all about maximizing the space. Go to the next slide. And so I kind of looked a little bit at the history of Chesapeake Beach, and a lot of this Bayside towns here. You know, it has an entertainment area, attracts a lot of people historically and currently from the regional metropolitans, and to come here and kind of enjoy the weekends, and now to live here full time. So the thought was, you know, again, how do we emphasize that and kind of even maximize the potential here with this, you know, large open public space that you have. And this, I'll just say this top picture here is from Bay Grass Festival that happens in Sandy Point Park now. I don't know if you've heard about that, but and then the lower image is a downtown park in Austin where they have their farmers markets and their vendor festivals and things like that. And that was something I heard that also Kellums Park hosts. So go to the next. So just to get right into it, I divided up the next few slides, kind of organizing how the thinking is set up for this park. And the major program, one of the things that was not asked, but I saw a great opportunity for, is a well-defined entry point and a facility where you can go and house a lot of the events that happen here, including things that attract people on a regular basis, like concessions or just gathering spaces, that kind of thing. So that's what the new park events and facilities building is proposing to be. One of the things that is hard to see from here is that while this would be a building, and later on I do have precedent imagery to show you kind of that open airy space that would be intended to be. And then this was envisioned as like storage and maybe another kind of concession, but that that it's connected by a long open air kind of pavilion. So while it looks like a lot of structure, it really is limited in the structure because the middle part would be kind of this grand entryway where you could also set up vendors and have a covered space with seating and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the amphitheater, which was part of the phasing, and including a small play area right here, so that if you are sitting here enjoying a show of some sort, you know, you don't have to, your kids don't have to run all the way over here to play. There is a defined space for that. And then, you know, kind of creating little side spaces that are more garden-esque. So a willow grove inspired by some of the willow trees that I see in the parking lot. And then, of course, being also civil engineers, always thinking about how we're going to manage the stormwater. So that's a great opportunity to kind of hide that spot there. And then the destination playground. This is the other major program, and we can get into that later on in the slides, with an separated adult exercise area that really can slide anywhere along this space, but just kind of tucked it in here as a point along the walking trail. So very inspired by the walking trail that enters into this space down here, and some of these access points from the community, which kind of shows how this space could really be used. And I'm sure the little bit that I have driven around, it is used by people all the time, but it could be the destination in the morning for the run or for the walk. And I measured this out. I believe it's roughly half a mile if you just did a circle around like this. So to go around all the other side trails would be longer. And before I leave this slide, and we'll come back to it, there's this area here, which was described as, the retaining wall that needs to be replaced with a covered parking area, the main parking lot. This proposes a new access drive here so that there is essentially a circulation route for events, when events happen, through the back edge, redefining this as a main entry point right here. And one of the things that I see right now is this right now has your signage and some information about the park, but it is essentially the back of a space. It's dumpsters, it's storage, it's utility kind of fencing. So it doesn't give that, like, if you put a lot of investment into this space, that doesn't show that investment.
Yeah.
So this is like trying to redefine that as the entryway, because this is more of a back road, back entry. And of course, there's little community spaces, public art opportunities. If we go back to the slide with the, I have another precedent image, but there's a lot of plazas with these little public art spaces right at the entry plaza, and it kind of is like a give back to the community. People tend to really enjoy those spaces. Picnic pavilions will remain, but then there's a connection here, so it then creates a more cohesive space, pulls those into the overall program. Seating areas, and then creating more like so this building here is not quite where the current building is. It's pushed in slightly, and that allows for not modifying the parking lot or losing parking, but to allow to recreate a streetscape kind of opportunity. One of the things that I heard is that people want more trees in the parking lot. So when you get out of your car and you enter into the space, it's like you really have this sense of arrival. So as landscape architects, that's something we're constantly thinking of, especially when you're trying to redefine a space, is how do you create a sense of arrival? And then, of course, concession storage, the amphitheater, the bleacher seating. Now, this space here, this is right now the back of the seating, right? The bleacher seating. So what can we do with that? The way I was sort of envisioning this is, if you have a stage here of some size, right? And in the precedents, I showed the high end to the not so high end, but still functions and still can produce a great community space. Either way, when you have events, you usually have to think about service and servicing those events and what happens in the back of the stage. You play production, for example, or you have scenery or stage prep that you have to do. This space right here really sets up to be a great back of house kind of service area for if you ever house or hold big events. And that starts to kind of create a need for circulation here, and then creating a way to go around the bleacher seating. That's how these paths take form. So you're giving access to the trail goers, access to this secondary parking, and then creating like, we don't want to just have this still feel like the back. So what you can't see here, but in the precedent imagery, I tried to show it, is a long wall that goes from this point to that point, and it can have, you know, a mural or a mosaic, or have some kind of, you know, history of Chesapeake Beach, or, you know, a call to artists, you know, in the area who has ideas for this wall. So some kind of community space and community give back in this area here to enhance that experience. Continuing on around the trail, then you get back to the more like wooded space, and you start to get into the more of the play area. So we have the exercise park for adults. Kids probably would like to, older kids would probably like to use that as well. And then you have the, you know, the small to big kid play area, destination park, which is really focused on climbing structures. You know, they like, you know, having these internal circulation paths, I think, are really important to making those spaces really interesting. You can put seating along here for the parents and the families. And then the trees, of course, provide shade for that sort of thing. Now, the idea is that this part here is built up on a little bit of fill, because I noticed the tot lot is built up on fill, and Jay was talking about the foundations. So by putting this up on fill, you can have a bridge and like a little moment right here where you're running from one park playground typology to another, and then you have some space above the groundwater for your footings and that sort of thing. We discussed taking this pavilion here and making it into restrooms, because if this really becomes a kind of family destination, it might be a bit far to go over here. So restrooms in this area, and then the walking trail continues onward. I rearranged the parking here a little bit just to show that, you know, there could be more like passenger car usage there. I don't know how much trailer usage that lot gets. I heard not so much. So that could be a space that maybe there's some further discussion on how that can get reoriented. Because if you did put something here, it would make sense to have some more direct passenger parking at that location. So with that, I'll just go through more quickly through the rest of the slides. So the next slide, again, just trying to diagram out the big program spaces and how they're connected. So the new park facility with the building, the big entry point, the aha moment. And really this has a signage. This is proposing signage across the entry, but you can put signage across this portion as well. And you can do either or both. And then obviously the music and entertainment area where you can kind of have like larger crowds, and there's, you know, spillover space, and, you know, people can get their concessions from this location, and the playground complex. So next. So again, circulation is always important, just showing the pedestrian access into the park. And some of these spots over here were kind of intriguing to me, like how much pedestrian access you get from some of the street over here. But I really think a lot of it comes from the neighborhoods on this side and this side. But then highlighting the fact that this is a big access point. You know, you can get in on this side if you wanted to, or come down around this side. So, but really this is kind of the big, you know, this is a proposed new access point. But then this is kind of a big highlight to rearrange that space. Okay, next. And then I went through the minor program already, but an entry mini plaza with public art right here, an art wall near the amphitheater, which offers an opportunity for mural or mosaic, shaded parking. We've talked about relocating the scoreboard, which I think we need to. Jamie already mentioned to me that error there, but that's okay. We'll have the field goals go right into it.
You did great. It's just there's a goalpost there. You'd kick right into the scoreboard.
And then a new parking lot access point to to allow for flow back through here, but that's really thinking about using this space as a larger event kind of space if you wanted to go that route. Paved parking trail, it's roughly 0.25 miles. So, okay, so you'd have to go around twice to get to half a mile. Next slide. This was just some imagery I found for some, hardy shade structures. We have the cantilevered type, the type that has the structure in the middle. And the difference is like one allows for probably more dense parking because this has your structures in between. But I don't think parking counts are your issue here. So I feel like with the structure, you can go any route. The one thing that we were discussing was there was one thought of incorporating the structural supports in with the wall, but if there was ever an issue with the wall or you probably don't want to tie those two things together. And have them be separate so that any maintenance or repairs can be separate. And then as far as materiality, this is what's happening in the tot lot. So perhaps the new wall is that same material, and we start thinking about cohesive material use throughout the park. Next. So I didn't want, whenever there's a new building proposed, people get really nervous. But this can be more of a just shell with supports like shown here. And the idea is that, you have this pavilion open space that people pass through, and then you have this is a zoo somewhere, but I thought it was kind of a similar idea where you have a smaller space on this side with, maybe like a storage or like smaller concessions or ticket sales or something. And then a larger space on the other side that can be more open air, just more free open space where you put your tables as you need them. Camps can run in there. There's a lot of opportunity for just having just this big open space. And you can make these interesting with how you design the supports. So that's the thinking behind the facility building. Next slide. And then the entryway, I mean, this is right now more or less the idea for something that goes across here. But I mean, like Jamie was saying earlier, that can be here. It doesn't need to be here. There's a lot of options. But the concept is that there's a main entry point that's redesigned. And then these are some pictures of how those public art spaces kind of work and become interactive. Next slide. And for the amphitheater, I really wasn't sure about amphitheater when we discussed it first. But then as I started putting some of the forms onto the page, I realized that there is space for, whatever size you kind of want to go for, depending on your needs around here. And I realized there might need to be some modifications. But these are some examples of how some other parks have done it, where it becomes an architectural feature. And, when there's not an event there, you can have these outdoor, meetings or gathering spaces. It becomes another way for people to kind of informally, maybe less formally than in the facilities building, kind of get together again. Nighttime events, camps, that kind of thing is what my mind immediately goes towards. Very inspired by some of the new music festivals that are happening in Anne Arundel County, and the spaces that they're using, and that this park reminds me of you have the infrastructure, I think, for doing something along those lines. So next slide. But I wanted to just point out, like, this stage can be as grandiose as this design by Lake Flato's, a architecture company that I'm a big fan of. I think they do amazing work. This is in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then next slide. This is another type of look and feel for kind of more modernist amphitheater. And then closer to home on the next slide, in Downs Park, we have an amphitheater, which when you get closer, it's really pretty with the wood soffit. You know, it can be something as simple as this, and you have some of your storage right there. So there's a lot of examples, and that stage can be different things. And I think it's really about not only budget, but what are the ambitions for the park and for the events that you could have. Because whenever I work with a group on park master planning, one of the big things is obviously, as Jay would like to hear, the maintenance of it, but also the programming and who's programming it, and what the intentions are there. Is there already a structure for that, or would that be a new organization? Those are some of the questions that have to happen around like figuring out what level of investment goes in. Next slide. So this would be kind of a like easy thing to implement currently with a walking trail. Is, you know, an art wall behind the bleacher seating, and you can create a little stormwater space there. But lots of trees, a new walking path with a moment that would otherwise be just sort of an in-between space, but making it its own space. That's the idea behind the art wall. Next. And then did we skip one?
You skipped that.
Okay, the exercise area. This can be really straightforward. These are off the shelf items, and you just, you know, create the pad for it. And there's a little bit of grade. There's probably 1, 2, 3. We go as much as 4, but there's at least 3 feet of rise here. So this would be at a little bit of a point. Everything's pretty flat here, so 3 feet will feel a little higher, and then it slopes down a little bit back down to the destination park. Next slide. And then for the destination park was really just kind of thinking about this like main key space with this big attractive sculptural kind of play structure, and then smaller play structures. And these are off the shelf. I wanted to make sure something could really fit. The fall zones are in there. I got these off the manufacturer websites. And, you know, this moment here, which connects to the tot lot, this would become emergency access, and we can either have that be paved or something called grass pave. So it looks like part of the grass, and then a new restroom facility. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that I think some of the best and most loved playgrounds that I've experienced have trees. And it's really important to have that because, you know, anyone who sat outside in the blazing hot sun while their kids played understands that those shade structures somehow don't provide shade where you need them. And really the trees are kind of, I mean, they really make or break the experience. So that's why I wanted to propose a number of trees in this area, and kind of continuing to add this, like what I would say, buffer between what's happening over here, and then what the space could be. So your vision is more towards this area, kind of directing your sight. Next slide. And then, okay, this just shows into some more examples of what kind of how people have done this, and with the internal pathways. Next slide. And that's it. That I'll stop.
Right. Anybody got any questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
It is very well put together. You know, the idea, like I was in a few conversations with Jamie about it, and then just walking around it and stuff like that. I think he really did a good job capturing it. It seems that you have quite an open design avenue. One thing, the name Buddy Kellum, like Kellum's Fields, it was given like for it. And I don't know if it would be done maybe through art projects or something like that, but kind of maybe a nod towards Waterman,
Oh,
you
uh-huh.
know, and like the Chesapeake Bay and stuff like that. There's a good history, and maybe it's have a little nostalgicness,
Mhm.
not a throwback or whatever, but just kind of a somewhat of a homage or something.
Right.
Just kind of brokered and put in that. We have like sea bots and oysters. I don't know how if that's done through art or if that's something that's you can see a vision or something like that. It seems like you're able to kind of visually put a underlying theme and a predominant theme and all that. So that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's lots of opportunities there through even the play structures. There's 2 different art locations, but those could have a lot of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So with the stage, I had this. I think competition's really good, right? And I was saying they have like for like the orchestra because we have 4 different high schools in the county,
Oh, yeah.
and just to kind of like we have nice. I mean, so Christmas time is really 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 nice here, and just maybe have a sort of size for like an orchestra, and we could have different years. Invite maybe a high school orchestra because it's nice to have your parents come, but
Mhm.
to play for like a town, it's sort of a rose-colored glasses kind of grandiose hope, But if I don't know
I
if
think
you know
it's
what
doable.
size that is or not. Thank you.
Other questions or
I have a
comments?
few things.
Yeah, go ahead. Eric.
I'm sorry. Again, what was your name?
Jenny.
Jenny, you
yeah.
did a great job. This
Thank
is
you.
really, really nice. And it's an awesome place to start. And I just took a few notes while you were giving your presentation. So I just want to go through them. We can hit them fast. And,
Sure.
it's it doesn't need to take forever. So you had mentioned moving the utility and waste management area that's right there at the entrance, which I think is obviously a great idea. But did you come up with a place to move that to?
Well-
This would be slide number
This would be good.
2, I guess.
So right now, it's here.
Yeah.
There's definitely there's like a big drain right here. I think I'd have to know more about that. Would be further conversation. It didn't seem to me, and maybe it's just I don't know that it couldn't flip to this side, or what is happening in there that needs to happen right at that location. It seemed like it was dumpsters and more trash and disposal, and you have enough space back here to get those trucks in, and we can, that's definitely the next
Something else to consider.
the next stage.
All right.
Thinking about.
Next thing I have to say, I see that up there in the parking space to the top of the screen there's plenty of room for a pickleball court. Maybe we could think about that.
Are you thinking
I will
Right
say
here?
Up there
We
or even up further.
Here?
yeah.
Oh, here?
Yeah, one of those 2 spots would be great for a pickleball court.
Okay.
I will say,
Okay, just a comment.
Well, no. To your point, we actually are funded for a pickleball court this year, so that's one of the few things. But I just would caution us not to open up too many tennis courts and pickleball courts and nothing else. So, but we could do a both.
Pickleball's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. I'll still beat you.
All right, next thing. Trees. I totally agree with you. Trees are awesome. More trees, the better. But just one thing to consider is trees with low foliage is probably not a good idea. We had issues up in Richfield Station with kids and drugs and smoking and things like that. And so we have pine trees, and they've cut all the branches off the pine tree up to like 6 feet or whatever to avoid that kind of thing. So when you're thinking about trees, maybe you want to keep that in mind. Same thing really with the art wall. I love the idea, but it's almost creating like a barrier where there's like privacy back there where vaping or something like that could occur. Just something to consider.
Okay.
I don't know if there's an appetite for a second restroom location, but maybe something near the amphitheater would be good. Because if that's an area of intense gathering, you know, we've been known to have craft beer festivals at this park.
Mhm.
If you're there listening to music or whatever, you don't want to have to walk all the way across the football field to get to a bathroom. I don't know, just a suggestion.
There would definitely be restrooms in that new building, just as there are currently restrooms there.
Okay. And then let's see, slide number 3 or 4. This one. There we go. So now Cullums Field has a fence around it, right? And we're talking about not having any fence or any barrier at all around the
That's
perimeter.
something that I want to talk about, because I am trying to understand the point of the fence. It's a big park and there's a lot of different areas to get in. So I guess the question is why do we need the fence?
I don't really know. I mean, I think that it was there originally to protect the football field,
I believe that's accurate.
but I'm not really for a fence. But if you look at this site plan here, where the tractor trailer truck parking lot is,
Mhm.
that's a huge entrance right there. I would think most people, or a lot of people, would be going in that way. Do we want to try to siphon traffic in through the main entrance where we've got this grand signage and canopy?
Can you clarify? What do you mean
So
now?
where the tractor trailer
I
park
think
is,
he's talking about
Oh,
here.
yes.
yeah, that big gap into there.
Oh, yeah.
We want to like put a knee wall or something there to cut, maybe not prohibit, but like kind of direct people to go through the main entrance that we're trying to create with the canopy.
So one of the things you can do, well, first off, I think there's some agreement, I'm not sure, with this parking lot servicing the marina. So I didn't want to tread on that too much. I kind of left it alone. But you can do things access wise, as far as cars go. You can do things like put up bollards and that kind of thing that they do in front of a lot of buildings. And that kind of protects this space. This isn't saying you have to enter here. This is saying if you're coming from some other place and you've never been here, but you're coming for an event, this is the way you would be directed to come in, see this point of arrival, park, enter in through the building, experience what it is you're going to experience. And like that's the sequence that's set up.
Yeah.
If you're an everyday person and you want to go to you're here, you want to go to the playground, you're going to just drive up to this parking lot or to the wherever here and get to the closest spot. You don't need to have that whole procession and formal entry, but it's there. You see the sign. It gives you this reference point. And there was talk of signage that can happen on this structure here, advertising the events, city announcements, that kind of thing. So,
And Eric, to your point, there was a conversation where when we looked at the boat trailer parking, I don't know what that means. Like if there's ability to move that somewhere else or and convert it into parking spot here or something, because usage is interesting, right? Because I mean, in my 5 years here, it sometimes I've seen it be actually used, but a lot of times it just sits there completely empty. So but I don't know who owns it technically or who has the authority to I don't know if that's something we own.
We can get into it, but there's an agreement with the Department of Natural Resources who funds the ramps, and then we have to provide so many, but all of that can be manipulated and discussed for sure.
Okay. Thanks for bringing it up.
And then next slide, please, May. The shade, yeah, right there.
Mhm.
I guess I'm having trouble figuring out why.
I can speak to that.
Okay, you can
So
speak to that.
let me just say that there is a need right here, one for a retaining wall. So that was the initiator of the conversation, and then I will pass it over to.
So after saying this is almost irrelevant because this is a heck of a plan. But originally that wall that's wooden timbers needs to be replaced, and the best thing to do is concrete. So the thought was similar to the lean-tos and different things we have. And what it provides is space for events, because every event we have on Public Works, we're bringing 35 pop-up canopies, but if the wind's too much or if it rains, and it's like, that's an always fixed space that's always there, not necessarily parking. It would have electric, it would have everything, and then on the weekend, you could have a flea market, whatever. So it wasn't necessarily to create spade, it was more of a fixed facility. But now that I see this grand picture, it may be irrelevant. So that's what it was for.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Next slide, please. I love this idea. This picture on the bottom left, this idea of an open space. If it could be, even if we could have like an interior rental space, we could have a birthday party in there or something like that. That's great. I like that. Yeah. And art wall, yeah. Well, I've already talked about the art wall. Concern being the privacy that it creates.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exercise area. Again, just a comment. This would make a great area for a putting green.
We did mention that before. Eric would love a putting green.
Feel like a mini golf.
And that's all I have. But thank you. I really appreciate your work. This is good work. Oh, one more question. Would next step be like some type of schematic design, elevation drawings?
Yeah, next step I think would be kind of identifying the places that you want to go to next. You know, where's the investment going to be next? We can keep envisioning the whole space, but there's just a lot of questions that have to be answered, like the extent to which the stage, that can be a number of different things. So which way does that go? But yeah, elevations, renderings, there's a design exercise in each one of those areas. You know, at some point for the structure and the stage, an architect would need to come in. So I think we can talk next steps, but it's really, I think, about prioritizing, and there is a phasing plan, what would get built next. So actually, Wayne, you mentioned something about this.
Yes, there was a desire to funds we have for this year, if you will. And the initial desire was the covered parking with the pavilion and maybe some walking trails. That'd be a good first phase. If we can do something along those lines that would fit into what we're going to do in the future for the overall master plan, we could build them this year because we have the funds, get that use started. And as we envision the rest of this master plan, fit that around that. So I think that's the next conversation is, what do you think? Give us your comments. We're getting some of that tonight. Let's envision this thing. Let's plan it out and see what we really want it to be, what you want it to be. Give you a final master plan, if you will, and then start talking about phasing of construction and what we do. You know, once we start putting numbers and budgets together, you can then make decisions.
Yeah, thanks.
I guess plan structure in that way. We're fireworks town, right? So that's kind of like our July 3rd and stuff like that. Being the 250th anniversary, maybe a direction of what right around July 4th is going to look like. Maybe a kind of sooner than later for us to direct a plan one way or another. So
You mean
We're
that
not-
would something be in place by
I'm-
July 4th?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a whole bunch going on in town, and for us to hear from you, You know, so we can choose to go in a direction of planning something, or we can accept that that's a huge hiccup of 6 months, you know what I mean? And however it is,
Mhm.
I can plan around, or we can just plan around together, but just knowing we're a realistic expectation of an overall plan. If that's even, if anything would even be started, you know what I mean? Just so as we approach.
Yeah, I think if we did something around that time of the year this year, it would be minor and out of the way. Maybe it's the pavilion and the retaining wall. Maybe it's the walking trails. I don't think it's gonna be very disruptive for this year, but I think I said in an email to someone, let's plan on this year using the budget we have for the facilities we can build that we know are not gonna get ruined by future phases. Let's put some money in next year to do planning, architecture, and permitting. Because that's really what's gonna take to get this master plan and vision implemented.
And it'll evolve over time anyway.
It will.
Yeah, this looks great.
That's true.
Anybody else got any comments or questions?
Great question.
Oh,
When it comes to that planning and architectural budgeting, since we are moving into budgeting cycle, do you have a general idea of what those numbers would be?
Yeah, once we kind of just have this final discussion of what do you want this to be, this is a great vision. How do you want to tweak it? We can start putting, start putting numbers to it as far as construction dollars, and your planning and architectural dollars are typically a percentage of that, just for rough budgeting. We can give you some numbers of that.
I just want to tell you, I love it. It's a great job. I like that you thought about circulation in lots of different ways, traffic circulation, and pedestrian circulation. And I'd like to highlight that I like Dan's comment about a nod to the area we're in Waterman. So if that could be incorporated in just kind of the overall everything, that would be really cool.
Okay.
And I would also say that if you could just work with our green team a little bit. I know they prefer natives.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not saying, all natives, but I know they would like some input in some of the landscaping and potentially like a little area
Uh-huh.
that might be theirs to landscape or
Sure.
put a garden in or something like that.
Yeah.
Just an area for them.
Pawpaw trees.
Or they talk about a food, what do they call it?
Food forest.
No, it's like a,
Oh,
yeah, food farm. Yes. And it doesn't have to be like vegetables. It could be pawpaws, or we just had that conversation. It could be the J Berry Food Farm.
okay.
So
All
you
right.
could work with them a little bit.
Is that it, Lori?
What's that?
You like that? All right, wait, we got Lori stamp.
great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation.
Anthony, you got anything?
Did you have anything, Anthony? Oh, okay.
Well, there's,
Do you want to bring up the solar? Because I know you were.
yeah,
something you were
I've been
interested in.
talking with a solar company, couple trying to figure out partners. I know there's grants out there and everything for the solar parking. So we're already kind of in discussions. We already sent them like where the closest meter is, and we've did some of the groundwork already on that. So obviously my big thing before was the baseball field. We didn't really talk about that much. But only 6 people agreed with me on the survey. So I guess I'm outnumbered on that. My only ask is that maybe we could find an alternative baseball field nearby that we could use one way or another. But I see that it really doesn't kind of fit in with this plan anywhere you put it, I don't think. So it looks like I am excited for this plan. It looks awesome, and I'm excited that it's moving forward. I did have a question about the concession building. We just like put a mural up there, so I'd rather not like demo that building. If we can just keep the existing structure and maybe redo the roof to fit in with the rest of the buildings. But
That was something we were going to talk with Anthony and his committee to figure out how we would. I think there was something like how would we maybe approach that, because there's names and stuff written into the wall as well. But but I wanted to
They're under,
defer.
right?
Yeah, but I wanted to defer to their committee since this is their project.
That's on the north side of the building.
And so then for next steps, Wayne, I'll go with you to make sure we're on the same page with it. And then if we do have the pickleball money. So Dan, I'll touch base with you to see if that, I don't know if that rolls, because it's part of open spaces, if that rolls into next year for execution. I think we have 2 years, right? It's not 1 year. Oh, 7. Okay. Okay.
Wow.
All right. So we have time to worry about that, but yeah. Okay.
I'd say next steps are digest it. Let's get another committee meeting together with us and kind of go through what your final comments are.
Okay.
Let's create what we think this thing looks like. And we can start putting numbers to it and give you budget numbers.
Okay, so then I would then ask the council, if possible, can you email everybody here just your comments? And if we can time box us, what is today? We're at the 10th. Can you have it in by like next Wednesday? So it gives you a week to, is that okay? A week, is that enough? I know we obviously won't have our stuff done in a week, but at least get the comments collected and sent in so that Wayne and his team can start working on it. Does that work for everybody? You good with that?
Can I make one more comment?
Perfect.
And we already kind of touched on it, but if we are doing things immediately that involve, somewhere that was dedicated, somewhere that was, somewhere called out and somebody was honored, let's have a plan for how we're going to handle that, how are we going to,
That's a good point.
Ernie's diamond.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cheryl.
Yeah.
we're not just going to remove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. No, there was going to be some discussions about the differing places where there are people who are like recognized and what we would do in exchange. Because obviously, like one of them is Mahoney's diamond, and there would be no baseball diamond. So what would that translate to? I do think to be very fair and honest, I actually think that we can honor him in a better way somewhere. I don't know the answer yet, but I do think we can do it. That was kind of a rush job from the last administration on the way out. And I actually, despite our differences, he did serve the community for like 28 years. So I think we can do a better job than a rush, thing.
Was just for the community's sake, was there no other place to like have the playground and the baseball field?
No.
You guys thought
There's
about
baseball fields are huge. So there's
Right.
the only place you could put a baseball field is in Ward Park and Dunkirk Park in Dunkirk. There's in Mowings, but there's a whole bunch of them.
They have a big playground there too.
It's ginormous.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Thank you. Thank you very much. Good presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Obviously a lot of thoughts gone into it. And Jamie, thank you for your leadership in this.
No, it's all Jenny. She did the hard work.
Well, I think you were working together. I don't think she pulled it out of thin air.
I guess thanks to Wayne too.
Yes. Okay, we'll give Wayne some credit too. All right, next item on the agenda. Jamie, water and sewer rates.
Actually, no, this is not me. So this is Samelia. I don't know how we wanted to approach this, but I do know collectively, we pushed all the information back to the executive branch of our town and gave you guys all of our inputs and here's kind of where we're at.
So based off of the discussions that were had, there were numbers that were the sticking point really seemed to come down to the allocation for salary and wages. So we've had several conversations among staff, talking to Jay at length about the input and effort from his team, and really trimmed as much fat as possible from that. And so we got to a number that was a little bit higher than what was proposed, and then built the rates around that. So if I can call on Dan to kind of walk how that fits in with the model, and then it ultimately ties to proposed rates that were presented by Jamie to Mayor Wall, who approved them. So.
you. So as far as the salary rates go, the current budget was budgeted at 681,000. And as Samilia said, we did the analysis, over the last few months and, have reallocated some of those costs back to Public Works, back to the general fund. And it amounted to about $144,000 decrease. So we took the rate proposal that Jamie had put together back in December, calculated the revenues that would be generated from that, and then readjusted the salary amounts to reflect the revised amount, which ended up with salary and benefits was $536,000. So I think, did you pass out the analysis? So Sharon had handed out before the meeting. I had done a 5-year projection of what the utility fund budget and the treatment plant budget would look like under the new rates or the proposed rates that we have there. And, it actually comes out, very favorable, I think, as far as, how the rates would look over the 5-year period. I don't know if you wanted to look at those sheets briefly now. But in summary, the utility fund would experience a surplus for the 5 years coming up. That'll be fiscal year 27 to 31. It would go from 180,000 cumulative surplus in fiscal year 26 to a $948,000 surplus in fiscal year 31. And all of those years except one would, or except two, would be years with surplus. There'll be 2 years, which is fiscal year 28 and 29, that would have a deficit, but the cumulative surplus would still be positive, all except for one of those years. And that would be by using the rates that are being proposed, as well as keeping those rates constant over those 4 years. So I don't see any large increases unless something else takes place over that 5 year that's unexpected at this time. I think you, Jamie, in your last email, you had said you put in rates increasing for the utility fund and the treatment plant by 1.5% and 4% or something. I originally put a increase in my analysis, but when I came down to it, we had the surplus to even cover the additional capital expenditures in fiscal year 28 and 29 in the treatment plant. There was some large expenses there that carry over into utility fund. So I actually backed that out. So when you look at the utility fund revenues for the water, the sewer rates, and the fixed rates, I have them showing as constant. We still generate those surpluses over that time. I think, we reflect the salaries accurately for utility fund. Based on the analysis, I think that's a fair assessment of what should be allocated to the utility fund. And I think with the rate structure that's being proposed, which I assume you all will discuss somewhat, that'll bring in enough revenues to fund the utility fund in full and generate a surplus over the next 5 years. And that should continue, but based on current estimates.
And I'll say this sheet here was like kind of my cheat sheet on how, because the model was so cumbersome to understand. So I had just created, it's a very simple water, sewer, and then where's the break even point. And then to Dan's point, trying to understand what increases would look like, because we did see a huge spike over the last year in costs. But I put 1.5% on, I think, water and 3% on water and 1.5% on sewer. But I do think ultimately it is a part of our requirement in the budget. We're just going to have to assess it annually like we would as part of the budget, just because even those numbers are significantly lower than the national average of increases every year. So it just is on us to understand if we're projecting, like if chemicals spike or something like that.
That'll be more of a minor tweak rather.
Yeah. It'd be instead of maybe 4 or 5 cents, it's like a 8-cent increase or something like that, depending on which direction. But it's just something for us to assess, and I think it'd be based off of input from Josh and whatever we think. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to request that we send out a letter to each customer, letting them know what we're doing, our rates, sending it out with the next bill. So not only do we email it to the account holder, but everybody that is in the mailing list, we let them know, one, that the 20%, what the price would have been without the 20%, that the 20% was temporary while we did all this work. And there's been a lot of that's gone into it. But I think one of the hard parts from all the different things that were said was the just really caught off guard. So even though it might not be final, kind of sending a letter out that that 20% discount was temporary. I think that everyone that's paying attention knows that that's temporary, but utility bills have gone up and stuff like that. I think this is absolutely the best that we can do, but I'd like to be a little overly communicated, just not too much, but just sometimes a letter and then one with the bill, just each month. So when that bill and the increase, it's as minimal as can be, does arrive, it arrives as expected as can be.
So what I hear you talking about is like a communications rollout plan for how the town plans to communicate how things are going to change moving forward. So absolutely, part of that is sending out communication so people know what to expect. But the other part is communicating about Aquahawk and how the town has invested in helping people better have a better grasp of their water consumption. Aquahawk has tools where they're able to set up price caps. So if you don't want your bill to go over a certain amount, you can set up alerts within Aquahawk that will allow you to do that. So what I hear is more about how the town plans to roll out the communications about where things are moving.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good. That's a good idea, Dan. But Samira, I just want to simplify. I think what Dan is saying is not just what the future holds and what you can do, but more of a communication of what was, what is, and what will be.
When I think of communication plan, I think of all of that. So
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying, but I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
So Jamie, just want to check for the interest going into the future. You're looking at somewhere between 5% and 8%. Right now, we're closer to 5%, but it might be about 8% on the average.
You talking about increases?
Yeah, increases.
Yeah, if you look at the national average, I think it said it was like 6 to 8% across the board for that utilities. But I think that because I think that we'll be able to look at it annually and see like through Josh what are increases of actuals and comparing to what we really need to do.
And then did you do that based on his numbers, or you introduced something else into this?
The revenues I used were based on his tiers and numbers that he passed out in December. And, I applied that over the 5-year period. I originally included a increase each year, a small increase. But after I pulled in all the expenditure numbers, I don't see that we need an increase over that 5 years. So I think rates should stay relatively constant. Year to year, we'll reevaluate, make sure that's the case. But from my analysis, it looks like once we have, initiate the starting rates, over the 5 years, we should be able to cover the costs, even including those 2 years in fiscal year 28 and 29, where we're projected to have some large improvements done in the treatment plant, that we pay our share of the costs, that we won't even have to borrow for that, which is something we had talked about.
And Anthony,
last week.
oh, I don't mean to cut you off. And that was exactly why I built that cheat sheet, because no matter when I was playing with the rates, I always was either way under or way over. But as soon as I did like a 5-year look at a time, because we're adding capital projects or we're finishing a debt service that we have, there's going to be some fluctuation, and there's no way to have, the idea was, how do we have consistency? And there was no way to have that consistency when you remove a debt service for 1 year, but then 2 years down the road, you add $500,000 projected in debt services or something like that. Your rates would just go like this. So that was my recommendation, is stop looking at it just 1 year at a time, and really 3 to 5 years at a time, so you have some cumulative.
Well, so my only reason for asking both of you that is because I don't want the town in the future to get into a place where there were no rate increases happening, even smaller ones, and then all of a sudden,
Boom.
somebody says, boom, we need to raise it up to this to be able to.
I had to tweak it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and Jamie already touched on this, it's our responsibility as a council every single year to evaluate this and make a decision and vote on rates deliberately every year. So we've got that opportunity to do.
Could not agree with you more.
Yeah. I think the fact that we were able to keep the fund self-sustaining and lower the increase by about 30% from 2024 is huge. That's a huge win. I know we've been going back and forth on this for almost a year now, so it'll be a huge win to get this behind us and get it locked in. So great job to everybody.
Well,
questions?
thank you for that, Eric. I do want to caution. I would, please don't make announcements on any kind of like the decreases versus different years, just because we're going to have to massage how we communicate it, because when we start talking the percentages, it's depending on the lens that you're looking at it from, and somebody could easily get very confused. And when I was talking with Sam about the comms plan, because we had a very thorough discussion about that, it was, how do we make it as simple as possible so everybody really actually understands what the impact is to them. So just, this sheet that I put in here for us is more like, so we have some awareness that you are seeing some kind of difference, but it could even, I got confused for a little bit on this. So I'm not a mathematician.
Great. Well, and Jamie, I thank you and Dan and everybody that's been involved in working on this for over a year now. And it's really it's really encouraging that we have a council that is able to tackle these difficult subjects and come to the best solutions for the citizens of the town, the council and the staff. So thank you very much. Please.
So I appreciate that we are recognizing the need for sustainability. That's a huge win in of itself. And we do need to do that. So I'm glad we're doing that. I'm a little disappointed that if we are considering revising upwards from the 20%, that we are keeping the tiers in the same categories, because I think there's probably a way to either add a tier or stratify the tiers that would put less of a burden on families and bring our commercial and high user partners in to help with this very huge adjustment that we have needed to make because of the way we've been running the utility fund in the past. So I would just, that would be my comment. Maybe a fifth tier could make up some of the difference, and we could work with partners to acknowledge that the entire burden of needing to right, this fund should not fall on only the residential families.
Yeah, I would just, we can get you the data, but I want to say like 95% of the town is below the $36,000 or 36,000 gallons. I want to say it's either, yeah, it's very, very little, but there is one of the slides from New Gen that shows it, but it's usually a water main leak or a water leak at somebody's house. Maybe they're filling their pool or that, and then it's a lot of the commercial is in that. So I'll send you what I can find on it so you can have it.
Right, just one more comment on that. I do appreciate that. We have recognized that the tier structure is what we needed to do to protect some of our more vulnerable users who really shouldn't receive the burden of this utility fund being sustained, their increases. But then we place the burden on only families when we have other people we can place this burden on. And I think it would be appropriate to work with those partners and learn what they might be amicable to doing to assist with this problem. I find it entirely inappropriate that all of the burden of increasing rates and tiers and such falls in the residential categories of users. I think that other people can pitch in a little more. Comment.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other comments or questions? All right, moving forward, the SHA update. Wayne.
We received a updated proposal from Rossi. The State Highway Administration's reviewers have reviewed it. They asked us if we would accept it. I think it's now $608,000 is the estimate. And if we accept it and we are willing to move forward with it, they will go back and ask for a fee increase update to match that. So that's where we are. They've said they've included everything in their proposal. It's still higher than our estimate. Our estimate was less than that. It's still more than 10% greater than our estimate. When I say our, I mean SHA and us, and JMT. But in essence, what they're saying to us is, if we want to accept this proposal at 608, we will be paying, we being the town, we'd be paying 20% of that. The state would reimburse 80% of that. They are willing to go get a increase in their funding to fund that portion of it. I think we've gotten generally positive signs from them. They think they could do that. And then if we want to do that, they would move it forward, get their fee increase, sign a contract, and start moving forward. So that's where we are.
So that will be on the agenda for you all to provide consensus on if you want to move forward with that for next Thursday.
Can we just go around and find out where people are at with this? Because I was a little alarmed
I just
based
said,
on some conversations.
Appropriate to do that at the regular meeting, not here.
I just have one, when it comes to actually build the projects, are we gonna be on for 20% of that as well?
We don't know the answer to that yet. That contract will be so the way this project, I say project, it's the State Highway Administration's federal highway project system works. You fund 30%, you get it approved. You fund 100% design, you get it approved. And then you move on to funding, bidding, and building. We don't know the answer to that. I would presume it'd be a 80-20 as well, but we don't know. I can't say yes for sure.
I remember, the number I remember from the previous council was like around 10 million. So it was pretty high, but.
So the original 30% estimate was roughly 6 million, as I recall. And they asked me to escalate it forward to a certain date in years. And it was about 9 million by the time I finished estimating.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Can I just comment, because a lot of my fellow councilmen are difficult to reach, and if this is coming on the agenda, I just want to note that Chesapeake Village is the one neighborhood that is not connected to the town. They have been promised a sidewalk for 12 years. I don't think we want to be the type of town that doesn't connect their neighborhoods when there are plenty of revenues to consider based on price. And this project, from what Wayne just said, is completely actionable. It is a go. It would be all of your choice if this project dies. And that would be extremely unfortunate. So I hope you'll support going forward with this project, SHA. I know my neighborhood would appreciate it because we're all landlocked and venturing out of our neighborhood is extremely dangerous. And I would like to say that I appreciate the town administration moving this to a place where this council can vote. So if anybody has any question as to whether that, I think one council person said they wanted to see a study that a certain number of people would be using this sidewalk. I would just point out that the Kellum's survey had 70 people. I think it's well documented that our neighborhood needs and wants a sidewalk. And I hope you'll support going forward with SHA.
Would you all please answer the phone when Lori calls, since you've been hard to reach?
I haven't gotten a call, so I will answer the call if you call. I'm going to feed into this though, because you were explicitly, you could have just said me, because you asked me,
Yeah,
hey, would you?
That wanted
Yeah,
that
but
study.
when the moment you're talking about, you said if you would say this on the dais, and I told you I will always say what I actually believe. And my question has always come back to, I'm not against the sidewalk by any stretch. My question comes back to cost versus the user. So if we're talking millions and millions of dollars, I just want to understand that people are going to use it and it's the most appropriate use of the funds of our town taxpayers. Because while yes, I would love to connect Chesapeake Village, we are a council that supports the entire community and not just one neighborhood. The same thing goes when we talk Cox Road and sidewalks there. Like I would love to have a sidewalk that goes in front of John Evans' house that would connect Heritage Woods so my kids don't have to walk down a very dangerous road to go to the other neighborhoods because they can't do that today. They have to walk down a very dangerous road as well. Cox Road is not safe. So they are not, Heritage Woods is also not connected to these other locations. But again, I just want to be very cautious if we're talking millions and millions of dollars for a sidewalk for a neighborhood. I think it is appropriate for us to understand the usage of said sidewalk so I will say that loudly.
Oh,
Well, I'm not looking for,
Okay.
I don't need an answer. I'm
My-
just letting you know.
Okay,
okay.
I mean, let's move on. All right, next item on the agenda is Celebrate Trails Day. Laura.
So, my committee has discovered that we've been looking for partnerships, and there is a great opportunity to partner with the Rails to Trails Conservancy. And this is the organization that essentially is building rail trails all across the United States. And they have a day that they have designated as a national day that they celebrate. It's Celebrate Trails Day. It's the 4th Saturday of April, and it's April 25th this year. So what my committee would like to do is designate this day as a day in Chesapeake Beach and celebrate it. And this year, that weekend falls after a very important event at the Rod and Reel. So we don't plan on using staff this year. We just want to celebrate it. We want to put it on the calendar as a day for Chesapeake Beach to celebrate because we do have a rail trail. And then celebrate it each year after that. And I kind of like the idea that we're not going to have it be a cookie cutter celebration, that we can flex it and do it differently each year and allow the committee, the public, and allow whatever's going on related to trails each year dictate what that celebration is. So maybe, this year it would be very small, but maybe in a future year, it's a big celebration. And so that's what we want to do. And the Rails to Trails Conservancy will support us with infographics and signs and some other things. And all they ask is that we tell them how we're celebrating and we share our pictures of that celebration and we just celebrate that day with them. So, but I would like to use their proclamation template that they provide and bring it to council to actually name the day in our town. So that's what would come before you guys, hopefully next meeting, if possible. But that's what we're looking to do. And it very low effort, especially this year, because we'll just be on the railway trail, celebrating trails, showing the value of trails. We will not be using any staff this year unless somebody wants to, ramp up this event. But I don't want to make the staff work every weekend in April. So we're happy to make it very low key this time. So that's what we're looking at. And I hope that maybe by then we'd be celebrating the rail trail RFP that we've had with the town for a while. So that would be something else we could highlight to the community if it comes to fruition.
What weekend was that?
The fourth weekend in April.
25th. Okay.
25th, April 25th.
First day.
So what exactly would you be planning to do that day?
22nd. Okay.
So it's a little far out, and we have what we put together for Samelia to vet in relation to town staff is just, this is the low effort version. This is a little bit more effort. The Rails to Trails Conservancy has a lot of infographics and things like that. So the idea would be we would come to the trail, we'd celebrate it, pass out some things. I don't want to get into exact specifics because we'd probably pass something out, some kind of memorabilia for the first annual Celebrate Trails Day in Chesapeake Beach is the general idea. And then go from there. It'd be different every single year, depending on what's going on.
Well, I truly appreciate that effort. As you know, I spent 22 years advocating for the Chesapeake Beach Railway Trail, and I was the lead person that managed to actually make it happen. And I'm not saying that to glorify myself. I'm just saying that a lot of work has already gone into it. And because of that, I am in full support of anything that we do to celebrate the Chesapeake Beach Railway Trail. And I really want to get with you and let's work together to at least extend it to the town limits. And so I think the council is in complete agreement that we want to do that. And as I've shared with you many times before, it was the Critical Area Commission that made us stop where we did, which was ridiculous. And of course, the people that were on the Critical Area Commission when we did that 20 some odd years ago are all gone now, are not there anymore. But I think that it will take a fair bit of effort to extend it around the curve. And I'm just basing that on my prior experience that it took 22 years to get it to, and 22 years to get it going the first time. So I'm anxious to work with you on that and with your committee, and let's make that happen. And then the next bigger picture is take it out of the town and further through the county up toward Route 260, where the overpass is. And that is going to be another huge challenge because of property ownership. And I know there's a right of way there, but those are challenges. And but if we focus appropriately on that, I feel like we can you know, we can make some progress. And I love the idea. I mean, and if you haven't read the book, The Chesapeake Beach Railway, a railroad, read the book. I mean, because it talks about it all the way. And every time you drive up and down 260, once you go around the turn and it gets to 2 lanes before you get to Route 4, that's the railroad right away. And so, and when I was younger and more able, walked most of the right of way all the way up to Upper Marlboro. And as you're driving up Route 4 in the wintertime, and you look on the right, just after you go across the river, you'll see the trail, you'll see the cut in the hill, which was the Chesapeake Beach Railroad. And so it's a heck of a history, and we just need to move it forward. Yes, I'm with you.
Isn't when you're coming across 4 onto 260, the
Pillars.
concrete pillars, that was one of the
Yes.
historical
Yeah.
parts of that, right? Yeah, you can
Yeah,
still
yeah.
see it there, right?
There's 2 of them there. You can see them in the wintertime, and in the summertime, they're all covered up with foliage.
Well, it's the wintertime, you can still see it now. I was there.
There's 2 of them there.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them there.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm excited to work with you on this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a passion of mine I've lived here for over 40 years now. It's been a passion of mine since the day I set foot in this town.
Okay, well, I'm excited and,
Well, let's get together and let's get this rolling. All right. Is there anything else that anybody has for the good of the order?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Is there a motion for adjournment? But before we get that, out the door, go to the conference room.
Second.
To approve, move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Let's have cake. Thank you all. Good meeting.
Pretty good.